Hey everybody, welcome to your readings for the week. These are the readings for the week ending December 24th, Christmas Eve, second to the last week of the year. And there's a Mercury retrograde next week. Newsflash, we move into the shadow period of a Mercury retrograde this week. Isn't that fun? Aren't you excited? We've got a Capricorn Mercury retrograde coming up the 28th, 29th, somewhere in there. I believe it's the 29th. So yeah, yay for that. Totally, I was prepared. No, I'm not prepared. So yeah, we got some little bit of some crazy stuff, some moon movement going on this week, mainly towards the end of the zodiac. So anybody in the beginning, in the middle, doesn't look like you're dealing with it. Well, from Libra on, we'll put it that way, from Libra to about Capricorn or so. Got to deal with the moon. Everybody else gets to no emotional outbursts this week for you guys. That's awesome, right? That's okay. Mine's coming next week after Christmas. So anyways, let's jump in and get to it. We're going to start with Darcy. Hi, Darcy. Very quickly moving towards that Christmas day. This is such a difficult week, I think, for everybody. The last couple of years, especially when you run a business, man, the holidays just make everything more difficult. I mean, it just makes everything more difficult. Even if you're at work, you got all this stuff that you've got to do, and you're going to have a couple days off and you really got to work hard for them, and then the end of the year comes up and you got to scramble to get all this other stuff. It's kind of a nightmare. And I sort of feel that for you this week as well. We do continue to have Uranus and Saturn squared with each other. That's not going to change throughout the end of the year. It will break up, I do believe, within the first month of the year, which we can look forward to. Saturn's focus is on the inner closet. Uranus's focus is on the past. I interpret this to be sort of emotionally recognizing patterns reliving themselves, if that makes sense. So either you're seeing a pattern that you disliked of somebody in the past, you're seeing that pattern in somebody now, or old patterns are coming up with another person that was supposedly changed, something along those lines. In these instances can bring up a lot of triggers. And of course, it's the triggers that really create a challenge because it creates emotional response. And then, if you respond emotionally, you don't really necessarily handle it all that well for the most part. Most of us don't. But if you say nothing, you're just internalizing it and stuffing it down. And, pardon me. It's really difficult to come up with what the best course of action is. And really the best course of action is, in my experience, is that you know what a trigger feels like. It's as soon you have an emotional reaction as soon as it happens. But you have just a few seconds, just a few seconds to go, I'm being triggered. Let me move this feeling out of the way so I can focus on this situation with a clear head, come back to the trigger, and then work through it later on. And sometimes maybe even enough to figure out where it's coming from, kind of a thing. It's definitely challenging, but I think the universe gives us multiple opportunities to do this. One, because we're not going to do it for ourselves. Like, come on, I have a little spare time. I think I'll dive into my trauma. I mean, really, we don't want to. We put it off. So unfortunately, we have to be forced into the lesson, and that happens a lot. The good news is Uranus is in a trine with Mercury and Venus. A trine that continues this week, but I believe is gone by next week. And their focus is on career. So I'm kind of looking at that to be, maybe looking at your career goals for next year. laying those out, seeing where you want to be, if it's different from where you are now, kind of a thing. And I actually kind of see you entertaining some ideas that might be a little bit risky. They're exciting, but they might be a little bit risky. And that might be causing you to have difficulty in making a decision if you want to do this. I'm gonna say, I feel like this is something that you can do part-time while you continue to work and just move it up in a specific generation. Wow, direction. Don't know where that came from. Where you can grow this business, and but still have the stable income until you grow it to the point where it becomes a stable income. So that's one thing. There also might be two things, actually. It's like I see your head is just exploding with all this stuff. It's like a bunch of fireworks. It's kind of awesome. Write them all down and go to whichever one really excites you. Let your feeling guide you in making that choice, if that makes sense. Doesn't mean you don't do the other one. You just table it for a while until you find a better time to be able to do it, if that makes sense. That's what I have for you. I was gonna tell you make sure you rest, but then I also see maybe a day maybe a day or two of sleep in there. So I don't think I need to tell you that. That's sort of why I paused. So that's what I have for you, Darcy. And let me see where we're at. We're going to move on to Connie. Let's look over here. No moon, no nothing in Leo. In the I don't know. I'm sorry. No influences in Leo at all this week. All week long. That happened last week. We're over it. We're moving on to free and clear. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule. This is the week before Christmas. There probably isn't a whole lot on your schedule. But it does give you time to kind of sort of come up with, a structure and some goals for next year. One of the things that I've been hearing about all the time, and I never do, never ever, and I should. I'm just Frankie's like, right, all right. Anyways, yeah, Frankie's here. One of the things that I always hear about, and I never do, is coming up with specific income goals for myself. So I know I'm meeting a specific amount of money every single month. And it's just much easier to hit that amount if you sort of structure how much you need each week in order to, and then you're focused on making sure that you have the ability to make that income. And yours kind of comes in, at very weird times. So maybe it's a more of a monthly focus than a weekly focus, because it'd be easier. But it's coming up with some sort of structure and planning out of financial structure. I also think this has come up before, but I'm going to say it anyways. Something about a list of projects, a project list of projects that you still need to get done, if that makes sense. It's those big things, that just have been, you just haven't gotten to yet. So, like paying your dad back, things like that, taxes, if that's still a thing. It's just I really feel like those things are weighing you down. And when you're talking about being exhausted all the time, and this year you went through the ringer, the last few months of the year were just like, hello, let's just open the door of chaos wide open for all this craziness to go on all at once. And it's exhausting you. And I don't think the craziness is going to go away just because the year moves from 2022 to 2023. I mean, I obviously, with the people that we are dealing with here, the craziness is going to get worse. It's not going to get better. So I feel like it's important for you to come up with a plan of eliminating those problems also. so that they're not weighing you down so much. I think that just the fact that they're hanging there is part of what's exhausting you, if that makes sense. And they're old ties keeping you from moving forward anyways, because they're just sort of shackled to your ankles. You'll feel better once you eliminate those things. I haven't seen a single picture of your puppy yet at this point when I am recording these readings, which is a day later than I said I was going to. So you probably had the puppy for 24 whole hours right now, and I still don't have a single picture of this puppy. That's okay though, because really your schedule is all about enjoying your puppy and training your puppy and acclimating yourself and your puppy and your Scooby all together, and in the new home, the new puppy's home, I guess, which I do see a lot of fun with that. I actually am seeing minimal drama. I'm not saying no drama. Okay, minimal drama this week. Maybe a couple of isolated incidences that don't really involve you necessarily. It's just something that you're kind of watching. That looks stupid and could be entertaining. But that's really about it. I don't see any kind of major any thing that you're directly involved in. And of course, we're ending this week right before Christmas. So on a technicality, the day that could bring the drama hasn't technically happened yet. But I do a really good ground and bubble on Christmas Eve if you are going to go anywhere, just to be on the safe side. So because you just never know, right? So that is what I have for you, Connie. And I am moving on to Jenny. Nothing in Leo. Nothing. Now, I'm not saying that your reading is nothing, but there's nothing in Leo that is going to influence a damn thing, which is awesome. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule this week. I kind of see two things happening here. Three, actually. It's all three at once. I do see that you're trying to hit a deadline. So there's either a deadline this week or next week that you've got a few clients, you're trying to get them done, and it's almost like down to the wire, if that makes sense. I see that. I see you kind of sort of starting to plan your schedule ahead of time also, so you're already making appointments for people to get taxes done in January, February, March, things like that. And I see you finishing up some things that you haven't quite been able to finish up yet, just some things that have been on your desk for whenever you can get to them, you're getting to them. So it's just kind of sort of a whole bunch of little things that you're just trying to get all done and yet get started at the same time this week, if that makes sense. And I don't see that as being a problem necessarily. I do see one day this week. I want to go Wednesday or Thursday, and there's no planets to influence this. This is just what I'm picking up. Kind of being I don't know, there's something about it that is just very difficult to focus. Or you're having a hard time focusing, if that makes sense. I just want to say I feel that it's possible that you put so much energy into the beginning of the week that you start to kind of run down maybe towards the middle or the end of the week. And, maybe by slowing that down and just keeping it not slow and steady, but a steady progress rather than, all your fire at the beginning of the week and kind of sort of tapering out at the end. Maybe it might be easier for you to get through the week if you do it that way. Because this is not just work. I mean, I see a lot of other stuff going on outside of that too. Moving up, obviously Christmas is happening, not this week, but we're going to kick off next week with it. So we're dealing with it this week. So there's just a lot of different things. But I mean, you got a lot going on at work, and then you got a lot going on outside of that. So I kind of feel like you're going to need to be very mindful of your self-care routines your rest times. I almost want to say, if you have a Saturday to sleep in, you should take Saturday to sleep in. I see something coming up that might sort of want to change your mind about sleeping in. I think, I don't think it's as important as catching up on rest, if that makes sense. I also think it's really important to, I don't know if you've been grounding and bubbling. I think this week is really important to ground and bubble. Actually, there's just so much. I see so much energy and people and, just coming at you all the time. And it's just, it's almost draining. So make sure you're very aware of that, and you're grounding and bubbling multiple times, so that you're not soaking in anything that you don't need to be soaking in, if that makes sense. And that's what I have for you. And I'm gonna move on to Linda. Hi, Linda. Virgo, we have Ceres leaving Virgo this week, actually. Not quite gone, but leaving. And Ceres' focus continues to be on relationships. As we're moving towards Christmas, to think about nurturing relationships just sort of seems kind of ironic and funny. We'll put it this way. We've already talked last week about your busy schedule to a certain extent. I mean, we had to reschedule your reading. So obviously I can take from that you have a really busy schedule this week. I feel like it's important. I feel like it's important for me to say that you need to spend some time with your family and make sure that they have time, and that family time's not being taken up by work, if that makes sense. Because I kind of feel like it's in danger of doing so. And yet at the same time, I feel like you're doing all this work because you're trying to make sure that doesn't happen as well. But I also get this sneaking suspicion that may backfire on you. So just be aware of that, I guess, this week. The other thing that I'm picking up around this sort of nurturing thing is self-care. And I'm not so sure that you've really been not paying attention, but practicing self-care as much as you should be, if that makes sense. So I kind of want to throw that in there as well. The holidays make everything crazy. I think when you run your own business, especially, it makes everything even more crazy because the holidays themselves disrupt everything, it feels like. And everybody just kind of gets crazy for like a month, right? But I also have noticed that a lot of times the crazy means something. They're trying to say something. They can't quite figure out how to get the words out. You kind of got to help them do that so that they can release it and move on, if that makes sense. So if somebody is giving you sarcastic remarks about how you're never around, or I'll just go do this by myself, they're obviously saying something. As annoying as that is, and trust me, it is annoying, they're saying something. Rather than get annoyed, listen to what's behind what they're saying, if that makes sense. And while it is important to you, and while working is important to you, your family is important to you too. And I know you don't need to be reminded of that, of course. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's your conscience talking through me. If that makes any sense. So luckily we'll be talking at the end of this week, so we'll be able to discuss that. Anyways, that is what I have for you, Linda. And I'm going to move on to Matalyn. Hi, darling. We have Ceres leaving Virgo this week. Hasn't quite left Virgo this week, but is leaving Virgo this week. So those maternal nurturing feelings are still going to be felt here for just another week. And then next week, she is officially out of Virgo and in Libra. This is also the last week where you're really going to be focused on relationships, and your day-to-day schedule actually becomes more of a prevalent focus, if that makes sense, which is kind of weird because obviously the week after Christmas, the week in between Christmas and New Year's, is still technically a holiday. So you don't really have a schedule, but I feel like it's important to kind of have a thought about it ahead of time, so that you know what you want to accomplish in the time that you have. I think, in all honesty, I've been through this myself. I've watched a lot of other people do it. These days we are horrendous time wasters, and we don't get done the amount of things that we really could get done. And I feel like part of this focus for you, and being a Virgo, and Virgos love organizing everything anyways, having this time to focus on what you can get accomplished in a week while still practicing self-care, while still sleeping till noon, when you can and when you want to, and things like that, it really does set you up for success. You get a lot more done than you really think that you can get done, if that makes sense. In terms of Ceres and her influence on relationships, this is going to be a very weird week. I think the next couple of weeks are going to be really weird, obviously, for the most obvious reasons, of course. It's Christmas, and it's the first one for you, without your grandma, your mom, without your aunt. And so it is going to be kind of weird and feel kind of empty a little bit. But I remember this little girl who would just do things, nice things, because she thought that they would make people feel better. And it did. I mean, I don't know about anybody else. I can't speak for anybody else, but it always made me feel better. And I feel like when you feel pulled to do that, you should do that. Because every little bit helps, if that makes sense. And let me just put it this way. It may look like your mom is really good at holding it together, but none of us are really good at holding it together. So she's not going to ask for help, but you can be there to help if she needs it, if that makes sense. And those little things really do make a difference for everybody. I want to give you 100 kisses and 1,000 hugs today. And that's what I have for you, my darling. And I am going to move on to Theresa. Focus is on, well, actually, we're between focuses for the most part with Libra this week, with the exception of Ceres coming into your sign towards the end of the week. bringing a focus on relationships, making that very prevalent this week, as well as moving into the next few weeks. And we are also kicking off the week with the moon in your sign, which is also focused on relationships. And when the moon comes into your sign focused on relationships, well, we have those moments that are so wonderful, they bring us to tears. Those are the ones we'd like the moon to bring into. And then there's those other ones where it's not necessarily something great that's bringing on the tears, considering that we are in the week before Christmas. This is, of course, the time when Scott is going to come up most, when Jake is going to come up, when it's just the first Christmas for Jake. It's not going to be an easy one, but it's not going to be a horrible one either, if that makes sense. The moon's grand sextile with Saturn and the sun is focused on long-term career goals. Saturn's focus is on inner trauma. Sounds kind of weird. That's helpful, but it usually is. As you sort of release old fears around certain things, it opens you up to be able to move forward in those goals. So it is necessary to delve into that trauma in order to move forward. Sometimes it really does sort of become a crutch that holds us back. And your relationships, of course, are part of this too. I feel like your current relationship may be creating changes to a certain extent in terms of what your long-term career goals are or were. Not that driving is going out the window or anything like that, but more like the restructuring of how you're doing it, if that makes sense at all. And so in terms of once the moon moves out of your sign after Sunday, moving into Monday, things kind of lighten up. Ceres moving into Libra is interesting. Ceres is a dwarf planet, so not a very heavy influence, more of a lighter influence, but she's known as the Great Mother. So she has a very maternal, very nurturing sort of influence. And when we're pointed at relationships, this just tells me that if there are relationships that haven't been nurtured in a while, maybe need a little extra nurturing, you'll see the signs, when they come up, that'll tell you whether or not these particular relationships are in need of just a little bit extra TLC. And when you're in a new relationship, you get so wrapped up in that person. I kind of miss feeling like that. It's been so long since I felt that way, but I do feel that way actually about Dave every now and then. You just get so wrapped up in that person that nobody else really matters. And it's not wrong, you're not doing it on purpose. You're not trying to be a jerk or anything like that. It just happens, and when somebody comes up and goes, "You never pay any attention to me," it's annoying and you want to react to it. Really, that's not the greatest thing to do, of course. The best thing to do would be to understand, honor it, and try and make time if and when you can, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you, Theresa. And I'm going to take a little break here really quick, and then we will get through the rest of them. Okay, moving on to Regina. I don't want to be you this week because I know you work in retail, and oh my God, it's got to be crazy. I want to warn you about next week. Not that it's in Scorpio, but everybody feels it when Mercury goes retrograde. Everybody jumps on that dog pile, unfortunately, whether we want to or not. And I kind of feel like as crazy as it's going to be work-wise this week, I think that Mercury retrograde might cause some issues for you next week as well. And it goes retrograde on Thursday, the 29th. which means that shadow period starts this Thursday. So shadow period is probably going to give you some problems there as well. Focus is on finances this week. I kind of see a couple of different things coming up with that. One is, the worry to make sure that you have all the finances you need to do everything you want to do for the holiday, which is coming up. We're kicking off next week with that holiday. So that's of course one way that it's going to sort of play out a little bit. The other thing that I'm really kind of picking up is something that's very familiar to me, actually. It's that feeling of being there at this time of year and always worrying about whether you're going to make it and whether you're going to have enough. And I do see you having enough and making it, but even if you knew that you had enough, you probably worry about it anyways, because it's just sort of what happened. So I kind of feel like this week, when you're in that sort of hamster wheel, for lack of a better word to call it, it's really important for you to kind of identify that you're doing it and step out of that, and maybe even ask yourself why you're doing that. And when you come up with the answer as to why you're doing it, kind of look at it as, is this really a valid reason to make myself crazy every single time I think about money, right? Because with focus on finances, that's the number one thing that we worry about, isn't it? I mean, we all worry about money all the time. I'm in the same boat, and quite frankly, I'm exhausted by it at this point. It's not something that I really want to waste my energy on even more or anymore, if that makes sense. So, part of that is getting more money, yes, but when you're stuck in this hamster wheel of constant worry about money, all the money in the world isn't going to fix your problem. It seems like it'll fix your problem, but it doesn't fix your problem, because you will just find something else to worry about. The key here is to take your worry and turn it from something that isn't helping to something that's a little bit more constructive. So lots of naps. Number one, self-care is very important this week, for the next couple of weeks for sure. But I mean, I'm sure that this whole week up until Christmas is just a nightmare in the retail business. So make sure that you practice a lot of self-care and a lot of grounding and bubbling. And if you don't know what that is, there is in my informational videos a video on how to ground and bubble. It just helps you to sort of maintain your energy in kind of your own space and keep everybody else's out. And then that way you're not exhausted from picking up on everybody else's BS all day long too, because let's face it, they're going to be there and they're going to bring their BS with them. This is the week for it. So yeah, lots of that. I ground and bubble sometimes 10 times a day. You can't overuse it. It's that wonderful. I never leave the house without it, to be honest with you. So that's what I have for you, Regina. Moving on to Theresa, we do have the moon coming in actually to Scorpio on Monday and Tuesday. We do have the moon moving into opposition with Uranus on Monday and Tuesday, actually moving into a T-square with Saturn, which is in Aquarius. So that's kind of a bit of a big challenge there. Not exactly something that I'm thrilled about looking at now that I'm looking at it. Focus for you is on finances. Uranus's focus is on the past. Saturn's focus is on the secret closet. This brings up a lot of triggers. This is not fun. I'm literally looking at this being in Aquarius and having to deal with Saturn and going, great, more inner child work on money. Yay, right? Like, I feel a couple of things actually coming up from this for you. The first thing is I kind of see a situation around finances, either something not getting paid, or I don't necessarily think this is your responsibility either. It's just like, why am I always having to clean up this mess, if that makes sense? And I don't feel like this has to do with work. I feel that this has to do with what's going on at home. So there's that thing there that is kind of annoying that may come out of that. I don't think it's the mess that's important. In all honesty, I think it's your feelings about the mess, where that is coming from. I feel that whoever is creating the mess for you has probably done this before, and that's, it's easy to see that this person creates the pattern, but I feel like this actually is a lot deeper than that. That this feeling actually mimics some sort of trauma from your past, way before this person came into your life, kind of a thing. And with that being said, it is important to spend some time understanding and identifying that, so that you can separate the two, and it'll still be frustrating, but it won't be the catastrophic frustrating that it normally is, I guess, if that makes any sense at all. And the answer to the question of why do you always have to clean up the mess, because you always do. I hate to pull the woman card, the wife and mother card. It's our job to always clean up all the damn messes. If we didn't clean up the mess, they wouldn't be cleaned up. I mean, it is as simple as that. And as annoying as that is, you have every right to beat your hands on something and get frustrated, but in the end, you're gonna do it anyways, which is unfortunate. The other thing, I do want to warn you that we are moving into another Mercury retrograde on the 29th, which means we enter the shadow period of said Mercury retrograde this Thursday, a week before. So of course, expect your travel arrangements and things and delays and stuff like that, the normal craziness. This is a Capricorn Mercury retrograde, and Capricorn is really the sign of get her done. And so a lot of things that should be easy peasy lemon squeezy are not necessarily going to be that way, unfortunately. There may be some delays in achieving those goals or getting paperwork done or whatever, that you want to be aware of too. In any case, and that is what I have for you. And oh, look, I'm already on my Sagittariuses. Look at that. Okay, so we're gonna start with Amanda. Last week of Sagittarius season, and in the last week of Sagittarius season, you got to have the moon coming into your sign right smack dab in the middle of it to create a little bit of an emotional reaction to the last week of Sagittarius time. Couple of things actually I see coming out of this. One, I see you trying to use all of that last week of Sagittarius energy, just trying to get all these things done because I want that Sagittarius time motivation before it's gone. And of course it's gone by the end of the week, because of course the solstice is happening later on this week. And actually the day before the solstice, the moon moves into your sign. So we're looking at Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, moving into your sign in opposition with Mars, which is retrograde. That kind of makes me look at all the energy that you've started to put into this week at the beginning of the week, just burning you the F out, just all of a sudden, once you hit that midweek point. And I don't see it as exhaustion. I have to wrap myself in a bathrobe and lay on the couch all day. I see it more as having a hard time focusing, if that makes sense. And that hard time focusing, just it's starting to create a lot of frustrations for you. And of course, we get into the following day, the moon is still in your sign. We hit the shadow period of the next Mercury retrograde, which is happening next Thursday. and the moon's square with Jupiter and Neptune may even start to bring up some triggers for you. So, your focus is on long-term goals. You're trying to get all of this together. The moon comes in, there's a big old giant freaking wrench in it. And all you can do is on Friday when the moon leaves is just go, you know what? It is what it is. Let's pick up the pieces and move on, basically. Preferably without having too many emotional reaction explosions that make everybody around you think you're crazy. That's always fun when that happens. I mean, sometimes it's fun. It really is fun sometimes. I really do actually enjoy looking at a sea of people who are like, because they didn't see it coming. That is like one of the most entertaining things in the world to me. So, and I'm pretty sure that that's one of those weird little quirks that we share. So don't burn yourself out. I'm sorry. Try really hard not to burn yourself out. Because you have plenty of time. So don't worry about that. So actually, that is what I have for you, my dear. Moving on to Sheri. Hi, Sheri. My good buddy Sheri. Focus is on long-term goals this week and the last few days of Sagittarius season, which of course is officially ended on Thursday. The moon comes into your sign on Wednesday, the very last day of the sun in Sagittarius, and of course is there on the very first day that the sun is not in Sagittarius anymore. And Thursday is also the beginning of the shadow period of the next Mercury retrograde. I bet you're excited to hear all about that. We have a full Capricorn retrograde starting next Thursday on my grandma's birthday. Actually, which is kind of weird. So anyways, all this shit happening this week. This is really the toughest week, I think, for most people. And then next week we literally kick off the week with Christmas and end the week with New Year's Eve, which is a pretty tough week for people as well. I think this week I kind of see a couple of things happening. One, I see you trying to make plans for what's to come here in the next year. You got your dad to take care of. You got Matt's parents to take care of. Even if you're not doing it, Matt's doing it. That's definitely part of your schedule, so it has to be included. You got anything else that goes in there, your daughter, her schedule, all of that sort of thing. But I keep seeing distraction, and I feel like that moon coming in on Wednesday and Thursday is really what's going to blow up this distraction. It's you're trying desperately to focus on anything but what your mind wants to focus on, and that is that it's Christmas and your mom's not there and it sucks, and you're trying so hard to make it okay for your dad. You got to think about Sheri every now and then. You really do have to think about Sheri every now and then, and in the constructive, this is good for Sheri way, preferably. Not saying that any other way is bad or shouldn't be done, but I really just want to say you have just a few more days this week of the sun in Sagittarius. Take those few days at the beginning of the week and spend them on what does Sheri need this year? Not the year that we're in, but the following year. What do you need to incorporate into your schedule that you need to do for you? You can't take care of everybody until you take care of you. And your time is literally running out. Not saying you're dying, okay? They wouldn't tell me anyways, even if I asked. But we've been talking about little things here and there that keep popping up. We both have them. We both just need to sit down and realize that we're 45. I'm sorry, you're 46. I'm still 45 years old, and this shit ain't gonna go away until we do something about it. So now's the time to do something about it, or at least take steps in that direction. And this is a good time to do that. Once you hit Wednesday and Thursday and the moon, fuck all that. Get under the covers. make a little Sheri crab shell and just kind of, be a hermit. Or if you can't do that, have as much fucking patience as you can. That's all I can say about that. So that is what I have for you this week. Going to move on to Peg. We have so the sun is in Sagittarius through Wednesday when the moon comes into your sign. On Thursday the sun is officially out of Sagittarius, but the moon is still there, creating a bit of a challenge. Of course, I am not a fan of the moon in my sign, period. It always brings a little bit of emotional BS into what I'm trying to get done that week. And I do understand the importance of it, and I do appreciate the importance of it, but I don't like it. Nobody likes it. Nobody says, oh, I'm so glad that I actually had time to deal with this right now, because it never happens, right? On Wednesday, the moon moves into opposition with Mars, and Mars is retrograde, and Mars is focused on the mind in terms of how you think. Right now, Sagittarius is focused on long-term goals. So this would tell me that the way that you think about your long-term goals when you're trying to get them set up, obviously is going to make or break you actually being successful at creating these goals. Especially if there are things specifically coming up that are triggers for you, if that makes sense. Which can happen. So for instance, if you're focused on your career goals and things like doing readings come up, I mean, obviously you may have a negative thought process about that, and so that could just, everything else might be great, but because of that one little thing, it's just not something that you want to touch. So you get to have control. You get to build the structure and say what it is that you want to do, and don't, obviously you're not at a stage in your life where you're going to let anybody force you to do what you don't want to do, and that's really what that comes down to. On Thursday, the moon moves into a sextile with Jupiter and Neptune, both of which are focused on the inner closet. So our secret self, our old trauma, that's never pleasant either. And yet at the same time, again, this is all focused around you and your long-term goals. And when you're focused on your long-term goals and you're thinking about things that you did in the past that didn't work out, again, you're not going to really put a lot of energy into those long-term goals. Because of that, you're already preparing yourself to not go through what you went through before. Oddly enough, the weirdest thing happened last week, and I'm not sure if you were in there or not, because I really didn't see, but I'm bringing it up because you may have been and thought it was odd. But I got this group message all of a sudden of all these people. I hadn't even seen some of these names in years. They were all old stock people. All these people were talking about how that's the reason why the group chat was brought up. I mean, this was years ago, and all of a sudden I literally got woken up to my phone dinging like 25 million times with all of these people, and I didn't stay in there long enough to really see who was in there, but I thought it was the oddest thing for that to happen right then, because of a couple of different things that I was focused on at the moment. And one of the things that I was focused on at the moment is what are my goals, my career goals moving into this next year. I really need to set some so that I actually get somewhere, and just that time comes up in the middle of that. And so for a lot of people, that could freak them out and go, oh, well, I don't want that to happen again, so I just won't create any goals. And I'm not saying that you're going to do that, but I actually am moving more towards take what was good from that and leave the bad. And that's kind of what I've been trying to focus on with that as well, is just that it was very weird and random how it happened. So I have to take the good from that and leave the bad, whatever I structure, I get to omit the things that I didn't like about it rather than panicking about the things that I didn't like possibly repeating. That's what I was trying to get to on that. And at that's what I have for you, Peg. And moving on to Mama Sheri. Happy birthday, Mama Sheri. It's your birthday. At least we're going to kick off the week with your birthday, ending the week with Christmas Eve, the day before your other favorite day. We have a few more days of Sagittarius season this week, and then it officially ends on Thursday. The moon comes into your sign on Wednesday, continues to be in your sign on Thursday, and we enter the shadow period of the next Mercury retrograde on Thursday also. So Wednesday and Thursday, big things happening in terms of planet movement. Good and bad. Couple of things. What I'm focused is on long-term goals. So I do see an element of creating some goals around business. But that's not really what I see you focusing the whole week on necessarily. I kind of look at this more as it hasn't been the toughest year in the world for you, but it has been a really tough year. We lost the girls this year, and that was really rough. And it was rough on me, but I know it was even more rough on you because, of course, you had them, and it was very much real because they were there. Whereas I could put it in a place where, you know, maybe it didn't happen, which I know is obviously a bunch of BS, but I kind of feel like you're almost looking for a new direction. And as you're moving out of this year, that's a very big part of what you're focused on moving into the next year. And I feel that this week really has a lot to do with structuring that or coming up with ideas for structuring that, if that makes sense. I'm also being told to tell you that you have some other ideas that you haven't tried yet, and you've got to stop putting them on the back burner. I'm told to tell you that these are really good ideas, and your fears of, I don't know how to do it, or blah, 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 whatever BS you're telling yourself, your guides are like, shut up, stop it, knock it off. You can do this. If you need the help, of course, I'm there to help you if I know how to do it. And if I don't, I'm sure we can find somebody that can. Bottom line is they're really good ideas, and yes, they're going to take some time to take off, but they will take off just like everything else did. So that's what I have for you. Kiss that new kitty for me. And that's what I have for everybody. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and enjoying your readings. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Next week is Christmas and New Year's Eve. Really big, busy week for you guys. Get a little bit of rest in this week if you can. I know that is asking a lot the week before Christmas, but try nonetheless. You guys have a great week, and I will see you next week, everybody.